couple of years ago, I was invited to speak at a graduation ceremony at a college here in Birmingham. And I was pretty honored to be invited to speak at this graduation until I learned that I was actually Plan B. Plan A was Condoleezza Rice, then serving as Secretary of State. And so they were required to have a Plan B just in case she faced international crisis and couldn't be in Birmingham. And she did face international crisis, and so I go as substitute for Condoleezza Rice. I can see why they would think of me and Condoleezza Rice in the same boat. So there I stood in her place. I spoke in her place. And the whole picture here of Jesus' death on the cross is that he is doing this in someone else's place. He's a substitute. You say, what do you mean? Well, there's a much grander story here. A story that is familiar to all of our lives. Every single one of us in this room, in this crowded room, every single one of us has sinned against God. We have all rebelled against God. It looks different in your life than it does in my life, but we have all said to God, my ways are better than your ways. I'm going to do my ways instead. We've all done that. And the Bible says that the payment for sin, penalty for sin before a holy God is death. That the penalty for sin before an eternal God is eternal death. That's the payment for sin. But God so loved us that he sent his Son to live the life that we could not live, a life of total obedience to God. No sin in him. That's part of what Isaiah 53 was talking about, read earlier. No sin in him. And as a result of no sin, no payment for sin to pay, no penalty to pay. The penalty for sin is death. Jesus obeyed completely and so had no penalty to pay. We say, well, what? Easter all revolves around his death on Good Friday. So if he had no penalty to pay, had no death that he warranted, then why did he die? I am glad that you asked. He died as a substitute. He took the payment due your sin and my sin upon himself, and he stood in our place. Now you see, you're starting to see how this is more than just facts. This is realizing that on the cross, with the judgment of God being poured out on sin, that is what you and I deserve.